It started with fireworks, 5 straight wins, a rising team surging into relevance, and the Indiana Fever looking like a legitimate playoff threat for the first time in years. But beneath the glittering scoreboard and the roar of celebration, a silent storm was brewing, one that would turn a veteran's quiet confidence into a thunderous reckoning. Sophie Cunningham, a player known for her grit, her grind, and her deadly precision from beyond the arc, didn't just show up in Seattle. She erupted. Her performance wasn't just good, it was historic. But what happened next didn't feel like triumph. It felt like betrayal. Cunningham went 4 for 5 from deep. That's 80%. That's not a hot hand. It's a flamethrower. In any rational universe, that kind of shooting demands the ball over and over and over again. But the game didn't unfold with logic. It unraveled in chaos. While Sophie was setting the net on fire, her teammates seemed to forget she existed. The passes stopped. The offense shifted away. And as the final buzzer neared, the most efficient player on the floor had become an invisible ghost, haunting the corners, wide open, ignored. You could see it in her body language. Alert, locked in, ready to strike. But the ball never came. The moment demanded basketball intelligence, demanded that someone, anyone, recognize the obvious. And yet, the shots went elsewhere. Players who were ice cold continued launching threes with reckless abandon. The message wasn't spoken aloud, but screamed louder than words. We don't trust you, Sophie. Not even when she was the only one hitting shots. This wasn't just a bad game plan. It was basketball malpractice. In the third quarter, when the Fever could have buried Seattle and cruised to a statement win, they did the unthinkable. They froze out the one player who couldn't miss. No adjustments, no urgency, just stubborn, self-destructive execution. It's a story fans have seen before, a star punished for succeeding. And in this case, punished for doing exactly what she was brought in to do. Lead, shoot, and win. The real story of this game wasn't the final score. It wasn't the winning streak. It was the unraveling of trust on live television. Sophie Cunningham didn't just shoot the lights out. She exposed something deeper, a fracture, a flaw. And as the season barrels toward its climax, that fracture may become the very thing that tears the Fever apart from within. What made the betrayal even harder to stomach was the identity of the player hoarding the shots. Kelsey Mitchell, a player with undeniable talent, had one of the worst shooting performances you'll ever see at the professional level. 3 for 16 from the field, 0 for 8 from three-point range. Yet there she was, commanding the offense, launching shot after shot, while Cunningham waited, unguarded, arms raised, disbelief on her face. It wasn't just selfish, it was sabotage, whether intentional or not. When a shooter is cold, you pivot, you pass, you adjust. That's the code of basketball. But Mitchell didn't pivot. She pushed harder. Possession after possession, she fired away, dragging the team's momentum into the mud. And as the misses piled up, the silence from the bench was deafening. No substitution, no course correction, no accountability. Cunningham, meanwhile, stood tall, silent, but seething. Her performance deserved respect. What she got was erasure. And as the game spiraled into a tight fourth-quarter battle, that disrespect became dangerous. Mitchell's continued presence on the court wasn't just frustrating, it was actively hurting the team's chances of survival. And still, nothing changed. The coach watched, the players watched, and nobody stopped the bleeding. This wasn't just about one bad night. It was about a culture of decision-making that ignored results and rewarded reputation. The numbers were clear. The rhythm of the game was clear. But the Fever, somehow, refused to see it. By the time the final whistle blew, the damage had been done, not just on the stat sheet, but in the locker room, in the hearts of fans, and in the mind of a player who gave everything and got nothing back. But the confusion didn't end on the floor. It extended to the sidelines. Coaching decisions throughout the game were baffling, almost surreal. With Mitchell bricking everything in sight and Cunningham on fire, one would assume a coach would adjust accordingly. But Stephanie White did the opposite. She left the struggling shooter in and let the team fumble away a near-certain victory. It was a masterclass in mismanagement. As the game tightened in the final minutes, the Fever's playbook began to look like it was written in crayon. Instead of calling timeouts to regroup or designing plays to exploit the open shooter, they let chaos reign. Cunningham, invisible to her own team, watched as teammates launched ill-advised threes with 15 seconds left on the shot clock. no discipline, no patience, no plan. These weren't garbage time possessions. This was crunch time. Every decision mattered. Every misfire echoed. And while Cunningham stood ready to put the dagger in Seattle's heart, the team kept handing the sword to someone who couldn't land a blow. The rotations remained unchanged. The offensive sets remained broken. The coaching staff, for all their experience, let the game slip through their fingers. Had the Fever lost this game, the backlash would have been nuclear. Fans would have demanded answers. Reporters would have torched the staff. But the team escaped, barely, and that narrow escape became the perfect smokescreen to hide behind. The win was ugly, and sometimes an ugly win can be more damning than a clean loss, because it tells the world, we didn't learn anything. And in a league where margins are razor thin, ignorance isn't just dangerous, it's fatal. What makes Cunningham's situation even more painful is that she did everything right. She's not a rookie. She's not a flash in the pan. She's a seasoned veteran with a proven track record. She knows what winning basketball looks like, and she knows exactly when it slips through your fingers. Her anger wasn't emotional. It was calculated, rooted in experience, validated by every missed opportunity she watched unfold in real time. Imagine the mental toll, standing wide open, fully in rhythm, only to watch a contested, step-back brick from a teammate who hasn't hit all night. It's not just frustrating, it's humiliating. It tells you your work doesn't matter. Your performance doesn't matter. Your presence doesn't matter. And for someone who's fought her way to every inch of respect in this league, that kind of dismissal cuts deep. It wasn't just one quarter. It wasn't one misplay. This was an entire half of basketball where the best shooter on the court was treated like a decoy. Teammates ignored her, coaches ignored her, and the scoreboard almost punished them for it. She watched the lead slip away, knowing she could have stopped the bleeding. And that helplessness, after a near-flawless night, is the kind of thing that changes players. It changes how they trust, how they lead, how they respond. And make no mistake, Cunningham will respond. This game peeled back the curtain on something much bigger than a single bad night. It revealed a system that doesn't seem to know who its leaders are. It showed a team that values familiarity over effectiveness. A team where veterans can be frozen out by younger players having off nights, and no one says a word. That's not just a coaching failure. It's a culture problem. Veterans set the tone. They command the huddle. They know when to speak and when to lead by example. Cunningham did both, and still, the ball didn't find her. That's not just a missed opportunity. That's a missed message. One that could spiral into resentment, finger-pointing, or worse, indifference. When veterans are ignored, the team fractures. When leadership is silenced, identity is lost. And when those cracks start to show, even the brightest win streak can come crashing down. If the Fever think they can ride momentum into the postseason without addressing this, they're in for a rude awakening. This wasn't just a bad basketball night. It was a warning siren. The Fever's offensive system looks less like a strategy and more like a free-for-all. No clear hierarchy. No understanding of who the go-to player is when the game's on the line. That's not how championship teams operate. That's how promising seasons implode. In great teams, the ball naturally flows to the hot hand. In Indiana, it gets lost in translation. This game revealed a glaring truth. When things go south, the Fever don't adjust, they double down. They don't evolve, they repeat. And in a league as competitive as the WNBA, that mindset is a death sentence. Cunningham's career night should have been celebrated. It should have been a signature win because of her. Instead, it became a case study in how to squander brilliance. The coaches didn't adapt. The players didn't communicate. The system didn't recognize what was right in front of them. And that kind of blindness doesn't go away on its own. It festers. It grows. It waits to strike again. Only next time, the outcome might not be so forgiving. So, where do the Fever go from here? That depends entirely on what they do next. Sophie Cunningham has already spoken loudly without needing to say a word. Her stat line did the talking. Her positioning on the court told the story. Her absence from the offense told the truth. The team won, but they didn't grow, and that's the danger. Because eventually, the lights get brighter, the games get tougher, and the margin for error disappears. Sophie Cunningham may have walked off that court in silence, but the noise she created won't go away. And the Fever? They better start listening. before they lose more than just possessions. They could lose each other. And now, as the dust settles and the headlines begin to fade, the Fever are left with a choice: ignore the internal fractures and hope they hold the pressure of playoff basketball, or confront the reality that winning 5 in a row means nothing if you're crumbling from inside. Sophie Cunningham didn't come to Indiana to play background noise to inefficient hero ball. She came to win. She came to lead. And if her voice isn't heard now, when she's shooting the lights out, when will it be? Behind closed doors, the conversations are already happening. Film rooms, locker rooms, and team meetings are now filled with subtle glances, careful phrasing, and the unspoken tension of a team trying to stay united while standing on a fault line. Everyone knows what happened. No one can deny the tape. The real question is, who's going to take responsibility? Will the coaching staff admit they mismanaged rotations? Will Mitchell acknowledge that she forced bad shots? Or will the cycle repeat? Because this wasn't just about basketball strategy. It was about respect. When a veteran like Cunningham delivers in a crucial game, ignoring her doesn't just cost points, it costs trust. And trust, once fractured, doesn't heal easily. The next time Sophie is wide open, will her teammates look her way? Or will hesitation linger, not just in the past, but in the air, infecting every movement with doubt? The media is starting to pick up on it too. What was once an uplifting narrative about a surging Fever squad is now being shaded with questions. What's going on with Sophie? Why wasn't the ball in her hands? Is there tension behind the scenes? And as the spotlight intensifies, so does the pressure to answer. Silence won't work anymore. Not when the receipts are this obvious. Even Caitlin Clark, who wasn't the direct target of this chaos, finds herself entangled in the storm. As the league's brightest rookie and Indiana's rising face, she's expected to be the bridge between the old guard and the new wave. But what happens when the foundation is unstable? Will she be the one to step up and demand smarter play? Or will she be forced to pick a side between loyalty to veterans like Sophie and camaraderie with teammates like Kelsey? It's the kind of crossroads that defines locker rooms. The unspoken moments where culture is either reinforced or rewritten. Sophie's voice, her presence, her undeniable efficiency. These aren't just statistics. They're a call to order. And if the Fever want to become more than just a good story, they have to start listening to the players who've seen the highs and lows, who've been through the wars, and still show up ready to battle. Because if they don't, that 5-game win streak might be the peak, not the beginning. Teams that ignore the warning signs don't last. Chemistry isn't just about high fives and pre-game routines. It's about sacrifice, recognition, and knowing when to let someone else take the shot. Cunningham had earned that right, and the team failed her. And here's the brutal truth no one wants to say out loud. The Fever were lucky to win that game. Not disciplined. Not brilliant. Lucky. If Seattle had hit one more shot, or if one more Cunningham 3 had been replaced by a forced Mitchell brick, they'd be sitting on a brutal loss, and the headlines would be twice as loud. You can't build a dynasty on luck. You build it on awareness, on accountability, and on putting the best players in position to win every single time. Sophie's silence after the game spoke volumes. No post-game rant. No passive-aggressive quotes. Just calm professionalism. The kind that hurts more, because you know she had every right to erupt. But don't mistake that silence for surrender. This isn't over. The cameras may have moved on, but the damage lingers. And if nothing changes, the next time Sophie Cunningham explodes, it might not be with 3-point shooting. It might be with words the entire league will hear. And if that moment comes, if Sophie finally speaks out, it won't be a whisper lost in post-game noise. It'll be an earthquake. When a veteran who's carried herself with composure and professionalism decides she's done watching her team implode from the inside, the silence ends and the reckoning begins. Sophie Cunningham didn't have to yell in that locker room. Her stat line screamed for her. And the silence that followed, that was the sound of a team missing its moment. Again, right now, the entire WNBA world is buzzing. Fans are rolling back the tape. Analysts are freezing frames, circling wide-open corner threes, breaking down every empty possession where Sophie was left stranded. The internet is catching fire, not with celebration, but with concern. Why wasn't Sophie getting the ball? What was the coaching staff thinking? Is there trouble inside Indiana's locker room? The questions aren't going away, and soon, neither will the consequences. Because this wasn't just a strategic failure. It was a cultural failure. This was about a team that had a chance to do something special and chose to ignore the formula. Sophie Cunningham wasn't just hot, she was historically efficient. And instead of feeding her, the Fever gambled on cold hands and shaky instincts. That choice didn't just risk a loss. It risked alienating one of the smartest, toughest players in the league. The bigger tragedy is what they left on the table. This should have been the game that united the narrative. Sophie Cunningham's veteran brilliance syncing perfectly with Indiana's rising stars, driving them one step closer to playoff legitimacy. Instead, the story became one of division, of wasted momentum, of a system that doesn't reward excellence when it's not wearing the right name on the back of the jersey. That's not how great teams operate. That's how great teams fall apart. And now, the Fever are at a crossroads. Do they acknowledge the elephant in the room? The clear, painful snub that almost cost them a win? Do they apologize behind closed doors? Do they make adjustments? Or do they pretend nothing happened and let it fester beneath the surface until it explodes at the worst possible moment? Because make no mistake, Sophie Cunningham won't keep quiet forever. This isn't about stat chasing. This isn't about ego. This is about basketball truth. Sophie knows the game. She knows what winning looks like. And she knows when the locker room is drifting off course. The worst thing a team can do to a leader is ignore them when they've earned the right to lead. Indiana didn't just miss shots that night. They missed her. And players like Sophie remember that kind of betrayal. But the real danger? It's not just Sophie walking away. It's what this teaches the rest of the team, especially those now stepping into leadership roles. Caitlin Clark is watching all of it. She's not on the bench anymore. She's the face of the franchise, whether the team says it out loud or not. And if she's forced to choose between aligning with winning basketball or protecting broken systems, that choice won't be easy, but it will define everything that comes next. The Fever can't afford that fracture. Not when they're on the brink of relevance. Not when the rest of the league is sharpening their claws for the postseason. You don't get many chances to build something special. And if Indiana keeps stepping over players giving them those chances, like Sophie, they won't just lose games. They'll lose trust. They'll lose culture. They'll lose the very identity they're fighting to build. Because great teams don't win by accident. They win by recognizing who's locked in, who's leading, who's ready. And when that person is on your team, torching a playoff contender from deep, you give them the damn ball. You don't ignore them. You don't freeze them out. You don't pretend 0 for 8 makes more sense than 4 for 5. You recognize the moment, and you rise with it. Sophie Cunningham recognized the moment. She stepped up, delivered, and was left behind. The Fever walked away with the win, but at what cost? The cracks are widening. The tension is building. And if they don't fix it fast, the next explosion won't come from behind the arc. It'll come from inside the locker room. And this time, the whole league will hear it.